President Trump is raising concern about China's expanding influence over the Panama Canal. Now, most Americans are unaware of Communist China's enormous and growing interest there, even including controlling interest of entire islands along the canal route. China controls two of Panama's principal zone ports, one on each side of the canal route. And they're finishing work on a cruise terminal on the Pacific side. They have 3 bridges across the canal with another one planned, and numerous Chinese companies like Huawei have set up distribution hubs in Panama's Pacific Free Trade Zone. So is the growing presence in the canal a threat to the United States and a violation of the Panama Canal Treaty, not to mention the Monroe Doctrine? Joining us now is Gordon Chang, senior fellow at the Gatestone Institute, author of Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America. Gordon, great to see you. We don't have to go as far back as the Monroe Doctrine, although maybe we can get there. We'll talk about it. But what is China up to in Panama?
Well, certainly it dominates the canal zone, as you just pointed out. And we got to understand that although these are civilian companies, they can be turned into military ones right away. In the middle of 2022, General Laura Richardson, who was then head of U.S. Southern Command, actually took a helicopter trip over the zone, and she said that those facilities could be turned into military ones. She was being polite because what she was really saying was that China could use those facilities to close off the canal in a wartime. And this is a broader issue because China can use its influence in Southern and South America and in Central America to actually interfere with sustainment flows and deployments of American military assets in the case of war.
Gordon, this is precisely why United States presidents, up until very recently, have talked about the importance of U.S. control, if not a very strong influence with the Panama Canal, which, after all, we built, which we had the canal zone right up until recently. Our Southern Command was based there until 1997. And it wasn't too long ago when Democrats understood that as well. JFK, when he was trying to become president, in his party platform, and I'm going to read to you, talked about reaffirming, and I'm quoting here, our historic policy of opposition to the establishment anywhere in the Americas of governments dominated by foreign powers. That sounds exactly like what's going on in Panama.
Yes, it certainly is. And there are rumors today that the Chinese ambassador to Panama actually visited the president of the country to talk precisely about this. We know that Chinese propaganda from the foreign ministry has talked about Beijing's support for the sovereignty, quote unquote, of Panama. And this was in connection with President Trump's comments. There are so many things that China can do to actually block the canal. And this is important for us because we have navies in the Atlantic and the Pacific. And to get ships from one place to the other, we depend on the canal. And we know the Chinese want to also dominate Cape Horn at the tip of South Africa. Fortunately, we've got a conservative government that was elected in Argentina, but China was on the verge of getting a naval base at the tip of South America. So really what we're talking about is Chinese domination of the whole continent.
By the way, yeah, well, you mentioned that. The further south, you have the Strait of Magellan. That's where a lot of ships that can't passage through the canal have to go. It's a long, arduous trip. It's very dangerous in the Strait of Magellan, but a lot of companies want to do that. And frankly, the Chinese are there as well. I mean, they really have scouted out the Western Hemisphere and are going to try to make things as difficult as possible for us. Not necessarily if we're at war with them, but any kind of conflict. They like to make life difficult for us Americans.
Yes, and they've already made life difficult for us because they've got listening posts in Cuba. They are starting to build a military base there, according to initial reports. They have thoroughly penetrated Venezuela. I mean, the list goes on and on. If you take Mexico out of Latin America, China is the biggest trade partner of that region. And that says something because they are extremely influential. We saw that last month at the APEC meeting in Peru, where Xi Jinping got literally the red carpet treatment and a state visit, and President Biden was humiliated on not only the arrival in Peru, but also during the APEC meeting itself. That shows you how influential the Chinese are and how uninfluential we are.
Well, and frankly, they were eating our lunch during the Biden administration, even taking advantage of tax benefits. I mean, the whole solar, I would call it scandal, where you had, what is it, Trina Solar, the Chinese company, solar company, which was taking advantage of as much as $1 billion of tax credits by eating into our solar businesses. So, I mean, it's just they're taking our tax money, literally, not only taking our business and gumming up the works for us, but actually taking some of our tax benefits.
Yes, and as the Daily Caller reported, we are still funding scientists who are part of China's 1,000 Talent program. And this is today. So it's not just something in the Obama administration or the beginning of the Biden term. It is going on today. Yeah. And we're continuing to fund all of these Chinese enterprises to the detriment of our national security.
Well, last question, because you know the people that were in the last Trump administration. Do you have any doubt whatsoever that the Trump administration is not going to act almost immediately once in power to stop this?
I think that they will, because, President Trump talked about it. There are some people that he's appointed or he is close to who are sort of pro-China. But I think on these issues with regard to Latin America, Panama Canal, Trump is going to be as good as his word. And he's going to actually start asserting American interests in the canal zone and around the region. And that's a good thing, because we've neglected what we call our backyard for a very, very long time.
Too damn long. Gordon Chang, great to see you, Gordon. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.